Hey, welcome in, guys, to Thrift Chronicles. I'm your host, We Be Thrifting, Jonny O, and with my other co-host.
Games by Omar, you know what it is.
So, how you been, Omar?
I've been pretty good, man. I made a crazy mistake the other day when I was listing a game that I had for sale. So basically, I was pricing out some games that I was putting up on eBay, and as some of you guys may already know or may not know, eBay has a recommended price for everything. Sometimes it's pretty accurate. It's usually the average sell price. So, they take the highs and the lows over the last 90 days or so. And, they go ahead and average that out, and then that's the price. But anyway, I had a game. Uh it was, let's see, MASH for the Atari 2600. So it was MASH for the Atari 2600, cartridge and manual. Uh, and I meant to put it up for around $4 because the price charting on that with manual and cartridge is about 16, and eBay's recommended price was 4.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I went and I made the listing, and I remember seeing the 4 and I was like, that's crazy. And somehow, some way, I just kind of disregarded it and continued with the listing. Anyway, I posted it and moved on to the next listing that I was making. I would say maybe 5 minutes, a little bit more went by, and I get the cha-ching. And I'm like, what did I sell? And I look, and lo and behold, man, I sold that game for $4 on eBay. So, you know, pricing on eBay is everywhere. And as a new seller coming up, or even a seasoned seller, it's really, really important to check your pricing. You can't just rely on eBay's pricing model or anything like that, because, the last sales within the 90 days, those could be parts sales, those could be damaged condition sales, anything to bring that value down. Usually what brings it down is people do the dollar start auctions, and they don't get any bids, so the item sells for $1. All of those type of things will bring the average down. And that doesn't necessarily mean that your item is worth that much. So I knew all of that. I just, I was just listing. When you're listing, for me at least, I'm just getting it done. I'm getting through it. I'm powering through it, because listing to me is one of the worst parts of the reselling journey. So I made that mistake. But I would say that pay attention, guys. Check your prices, check your listings before you publish it, so you don't go ahead and undersell something drastically like I did. And yes, I did mail it out. I mail out everything. I don't care if it goes for $1. Whatever it is I sell, if I sell it, it's getting sent to a home. So my mistake is his game.
Yeah, he gained a really, really amazing deal. You had everything that came with it, pretty much almost kind of like brand new, because you had the manual, the casing, and everything else that was included. But yeah, like you said, you did have a good point. As a reseller or like a veteran reseller, everyone needs to check their listings and comps and the price checking and stuff like that, because like you said, you don't want to undervalue or overvalue. I know when I list, I try to be in the middle, just kind of be fair. I know sometimes you may not get no accurate pricing, because like you said, eBay goes off for 90 days. If someone does a dollar bid, it might sell for $1, $2. So obviously eBay is going to tell you that the value of the game or whatever it is you're selling, it's worth that, but you really don't know. So it doesn't mean, yeah, yours is going to be worth that. Also, when you, for listing, sometimes I feel like on eBay or anything else, it might be an item that hasn't sold for so long. Cause you know what? eBay only does like, what, up to 90 days, right? But it's only like current 90 days. But sometimes they might not even have something even recent. So you might not even know what the exact value is, correct?
Correct. For eBay, so eBay definitely goes back 90 days. Now, for on the game side or collectible sides, I know cards and other things of that nature, you can go price charting, which just goes as far back as it goes. You could have sales for the last 5 years or something like that. You won't be able to click on the listings because eBay will, they'll obviously be removed by that point in time. But yeah, 90 days is usually with sales data on eBay, the numbers that they'll generate that price at.
Okay, yeah, because like I said, I've seen stuff when I look for certain things to do price checking or just to find recent comps. It'll say like, say we're in June, and it'll give me something from like last year in like let's just say January or something like that, and then I'm just like, I can't really determine what actual price I should list some item. So sometimes I just figure out what everybody else has it listed as, and then I try to be equal and kind of fair. That's just how I go. Also, I know you had a good point about the most frustrating part as a reseller is the listing because it is overwhelming, overbearing because it's like you got to make sure you have the good pictures. You got to make sure you're able to show everything that's wrong with the item, whether it's damaged, cracked, the case is broken, something's missing. You got to make sure you state that in the description because at the same time, you're selling this to an individual that literally wants to buy the item. You want to make sure everything is good. Because I know there's sometimes where I'm like rushing, just like how you're saying, you're just on the go. You're just trying to go ahead and list everything as much as you can to get the inventory out, put it on the platforms that you sell. So then customers can see and go ahead and purchase that. And there's sometimes why I skip certain things. I'll just say if I do a VHS, I'll only take a picture of the cover and then the back. And then later on, someone might be interested and they're just like, hey, I noticed that you only have the picture for the front and the back. Like, I want to see the inside of the tape. And then it's like, sometimes I'm not at home or I'm not, I don't have access to my phone, or like, then I have to tell them or message them back and say, hey, look, I'm not currently home right now, but I'll go ahead and take that picture once I get home to show you the inside of the tape in and out, or DVD or whatnot. And I know sometimes this just falls on me. I don't know if you ever have that situation sometimes because it is overwhelming doing the listing part stuff. But I was explaining how sometimes I'll take pictures of an item and maybe I'll just do the front and back of the casing. And then because you're in a hurry trying to get the inventory out and put it on any platform that you sell it on to make sure that you could get a buyer to sell it. But what my issue is sometimes, since I'm so busy, I'll have a buyer message me and say, hey, like, I noticed you did the front and back of the casing, but I would like to see the VHS, what it looks like, if there's any mold, or vice versa, as in, I want to see the DVD video game or sports card, the condition. Can you please go ahead and send me that picture? And then usually with me, it's like I don't have access to my phone, or I have to tell them, hey, I'm not currently at home, but when I get home, that's the first thing I'll do. I'll go ahead and take that picture for you. But what I was saying is, do you have that issue where sometimes you're in a rush and you tend to forget to do multiple pictures of certain things, or you're just like, oh shoot, you do everything at once?
So, for me, I'll be honest, man. It depends on and I try so all right. My listings, I'm trying to keep everything uniform. I have my first picture, the front of the game, the back side to side. And that's usually kind of how I do it for video games. Consoles obviously is a little different. You take a picture of different angles. Sometimes I'll plug it in, show that it actually works, things of that nature. I try to keep it uniformed. It's not always like that. I think for me, it's the description that I really need to work on because I used to write really detailed description. For whatever reason, I got away from that. So I keep it pretty simple. I'm like, hey, this listing is for, Resident Evil 6 for the Xbox 360. Game case and manual only. See pictures for description. And then I try to take the picture so whoever can see exactly if there's any flaws. Now, if it's like a console, I might go in a little bit more depth, but and a lot of people may disagree with that. I know people that write paragraphs for everything that they post,
Yeah, but
and
my thing is, not to cut you off, but my thing is, I know you're exactly right. I do see people that write like a damn paragraph, a whole freaking essay, and it's like, I've done that multiple times, and then I've still get messages like, "Hey, you didn't state," or when they receive it, they'll be like, "Hey, you didn't state that it was cracked or whatnot, or it was missing this." And I'm like, "I did. It's in the description." And then I have to screenshot it and send it to them. And then they're like, "Oh, I just noticed that." What do you mean you just noticed that? It was in the description. I stated that. Either you were hesitant to hurry up and buy it, or you just weren't paying attention. So it is what it is. But yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just saying, like,
Yeah, no,
I've
that I
seen people
mean,
do that.
it's true, man. It's I've realized that, at the end of the day, a lot of people are not necessarily reading most of this stuff. So, I just say see pictures for condition and then I take my pictures and that's the condition. For me, the biggest thing is, I let people know that's tested and working. Yeah, I always put that in there, because most of the stuff that I sell is, if not, it's, usually listed for parts or something like that if it doesn't work, or if I'm unable to test it or something crazy. But, you know, I think for me, that's the biggest part just because at the end of the day, like you said, man, people aren't necessarily reading this stuff. They just gotta they see it, they want it, they put it
They're
in the
just
cart.
pressing the trigger and buy now.
And hey, ain't nothing wrong with that. Buy now, buy as much as you need to buy. You
Right?
know,
It's true.
we we love buyers here. So, that's but still it does take, just take a little time to read it. Or, I always say ask questions. I used to say actually, I should probably start putting that. Ask questions prior to purchase, stuff like that. Um
Yeah.
just so that the buyer has time before they make that purchase, because the worst thing you want is to return something, and for me, I always say it like once I get that money, man, that I'm parlaying that into some other games, or it's going into something else. So I think for me, that's why I really work on making sure everything is good before I send it out, just for the fact that I really don't want to return anything. And it's inevitable, man. It's gonna happen. You'll get it. Even if something is 100% good, you get people that buy things and they have buyer's remorse or whatever, and oh, I bought it by accident. I mean, you get all that stuff. But, if you have an accurate description, accurate listing, good pictures, for the most part, it reduces that, but it happens anyway, man. It's for the new buyers out there, don't get discouraged if you get a return, because it just that's the nature of the game. Just have enough money to cover it if you have to return it, so you're not owing eBay a bunch of money. That's it. But yeah, man, you made a good point. It's always good to have everything laid out there so that there's no second guessing. But as you said, people don't really read, man, and that's getting more and more prevalent, as we go along in this journey. People just buy and think about it later.
Yeah, they think about it later once they received it, and then they're over here writing you messages. As for me, like I get all these messages, and they're constantly telling me, "Hey, can I get a refund because of this wasn't stated, or this and that, or you didn't state this in the picture?" And I'm like, "I said reference to the picture, or I said in the description." And then it's like you can't really win with the customer because it's like eBay is kind of gonna favor their side. So it's like you said, once I receive that money, that money's already long gone spent on some more inventory, or probably something I must spend on my kids. So then when you tell me refund, I'm just like, dang it, now I got to refund this guy. And then if I don't have the money, I'm gonna be fairly honest. Like I'm like, look, you know what, eBay, you're gonna have to refund them and put me in the neg because right now I'll get back to you when I get some more sales. So,
I mean, it's sometimes sometimes it gotta be like that, man. And because the thing is, look, we're reselling, bro, and you never this one thing about reselling, man, you'll never know where it's gonna take you. You could sell something for $300 right now, and then find your dream lot of items that you need for $300 right after. So where that money that you just got from that sale, a lot of people will say, well, you got to sit on it and, this and that. But it's like, you never know. Inventory is popping up at all times. And, having that capital, having that cash in hand, to be able to just go parlay that into more inventory to boost your business, I mean, you got to do that. And I know I do that. So, if I sell something for $300, one, I want to make sure before I even post it that it's something that somebody's going to buy for 300 and be happy with it for 300. But once again, we can't please everybody. So, there's going to be times where you'll get a return just to get a return. But, usually that money is long gone, man. As soon as I get it the next day, and
No, next
I
day
don't,
is same day.
yeah, I mean, gone. But it is what it is, man. And as a reseller, you're just gonna go through that. Obviously, the least amount of those you can get, the better. For your metrics and all of that type of stuff, because eBay keeps track of everything. Uh, so you really want to just make sure like your account is good. And I referenced eBay, but this is everywhere. You want to make sure that your account's in good standing. You're not a lot of people aren't returning stuff. A lot of people, it's that stuff reflects negatively on your business. So, as someone coming up, it's definitely good to try to reduce that as much as possible. I know whatnot, I know, and we're jumping all over the place, guys, but whatnot has this thing now. I don't know if you heard about it, and you're probably on there probably a little more than me sometimes, man. I haven't been on there as much, but
Not lately.
the buyers, man, whatnot's getting a really lenient with the buyers saying that there's an issue or it wasn't represented in the stream. And what they're doing, they're actually refunding the buyers, and they won't necessarily take it out of your earnings. And most people would be like, well, then who cares? But it's a strike on your account.
No. Okay.
Uh, and I learned about this recently because I'm not too much into whatnot as much as other people are. But one time I got and the thing is, I looked at my metrics on Whatnot, and I saw that I don't remember the term that they use over there, but basically it showed that there were two two items from the same buyer, by the way, that wasn't represented in the stream correctly, this and that and the third. Um the buyer never reached out to me, never said anything to me. Actually, I went back and I think I got good reviews from that buyer. But it's a way that, they can kind of game the system and get their refund and whatnot. I don't know if they're working on it, because I know I'm in a couple of whatnot groups, like Facebook groups for sellers, stuff like that, and that's been a rampant issue over there. And I don't know if it's something that they're working on. I don't know if it's something that you know uh, they'll revise in the future, but stuff like that can hurt your metrics, can hurt your business. Even if you don't actually lose the sale money. Because it's not always about money. It's just about building your business, building your reputation there. And if you get a few of those marks and then your account's taken away, then that's a big dent in your future money and your future business.
No, yeah, you're right. Because you talking about that, like for new sellers, they need to be able to hear that. For me, an experience for me going talking about that. As for returns and all that, you don't want to get dings on your account just because I've been through that on eBay. Because eBay is very, very strict when it comes to stuff like that, as in people returning stuff. And obviously getting complaints from customers. So I think on eBay, I don't know if you know, because it happened to me. If you get a certain amount of like refund, or you state that the item was lost or damaged, I think it's like 5 or 6 within the month. What happens is, I know it happened to me. eBay pretty much kind of like slows down your sales. I guess it does not. I think it's probably not even pushed as much on the analytics, but it slows down your sales, and then you can't really, because with me, I use to promote my items even more, to push it out more on eBay. So they take a little extra percent. But for me, it helps me. So when I sell my promoted item, but I know when I was getting those dings, and I think I got like 5 or 6 within the month or whatever, eBay literally stopped me promoting items. So that kind of hurt me really, really bad. Within, I think for like a month, or I think like a whole month and a half, eBay was reviewing to see if I was to get enough sales for me to be eligible again to start promoting again and not refund and state that these I have damaged item or it's lost or it's found. So as a reseller, guys coming in, just to let you know, like please pay attention on your inventory, what you have, what you're listing. Make sure you're able to put it somewhere where you can find it. Make sure if you have it on another platform, and if you sold it on there, please be advised to make sure that you take it off of your other platform, because like I'm saying, on eBay, that type of stuff does matter. And like how Omar stated, it messes up your metrics, and you don't want to lose money, especially if you're trying to be a full-time reseller and you're relying on that money. You got to make sure you do everything correctly coming in. Take baby steps to learn the stuff. It took me a minute to learn, but at the end of the day, it's like it affected me when eBay put that on me. I was just like stressing, like freaking stressing balls for that crap.
I understand, man, and it's you've made a good point, especially if you're cross listed, because let's be honest here, you know, if you're a reseller, you know, although we all have our favorite platforms, it does benefit to be on multiple platforms. For me in particular, I try to be almost everywhere games are being sold. There's some that I don't use primarily, like, okay, Whatnot. I barely use Whatnot. I haven't done a live stream, I think probably once this whole year, but
Wayline a
I'm
whole
on
year.
a whole once this year. So the ones this year, sometime. I don't go on there as much. Shout out to Whatnot though. It's not terrible. It's not for me. But I try to be everywhere, because you never know where that sale's gonna come from. But to your point, cross listing, when you cross list items and you sell on one platform, you gotta be 100% proactive in taking it down. Cause I can't tell you how many times, and I've gotten a lot better, that I've sold something, I'll deal with it later. And then I sell it again somewhere else.
Yeah.
And, in the video game world, you might have two copies, so that could work out. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I got another one. I send one here, send one there. But if it's something where you don't have another copy, you got to create that return, and then that creates a ding. And, for me, I try to avoid that. What I've done in the past, um, which, I don't necessarily recommend. I've sold something. Perfect example. I sold a copy of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, remastered, for the Xbox Series X, I think, or Xbox One. I don't remember, but I sold that, and I sold it again. I sold it in one of the stores that I rent out space in, and then I sold it online. So I went to the store to go restock and then go get that game so I could go mail it out. And then I realized I didn't have the game. So, I didn't want to cancel. I don't like cancel, especially first time buyers, because you don't know, a first time buyer could be a lifetime buyer. That's
True. Yeah. No, I
my
agree.
that's my model, so first time, I don't want to cancel, period. But first time buyers, I definitely do not want to cancel ever. So, went to my local game store, and I tried to find it and I couldn't find it. So I actually went and got one off of eBay and had it sent directly to the customer. And most people would be like, well, then you didn't really make that much money. And I didn't. But at the end of the day, that shows that, I'm putting in the initiative, and I'm not just canceling on them right off the bat. And you have to send something, because you have to generate a label. So I went and sent him like a Forza or something, like another racing game. So he got two games basically for my mistake. But that little, gesture right there might have him come back again because he's like, man, this dude really took care of me, and I might not lose him. And who knows? Sometimes people buy from you once and then you never see them again. So that's just the nature of the game. But for me personally, I really try to get first time buyers to be lifetime buyers. Because all you need in reselling is a decent amount of return business to survive. And if you can get people to return to you and get people to uh, come back to you, that that's something that's priceless. But it all goes back to listing. It goes back to being descriptive. It goes back to what you were talking about earlier, is talking about the flaws, making sure your pricing is right. All of that stuff combined gives a good customer experience, and may or may not incline that person to come back.
Yeah, definitely. You're definitely right. And then too, checking your inventory, like I was saying, like how you had your story about you went out the way, took initiative, and you bought the game on eBay. Yeah, I didn't really make no money, but at the end of the day, like you took the time and the effort to get that person its item because you want it to sell, and then you want to make sure, like you said, it might be a consistent first time buyer that wants to constantly come to your store, or it may not be. I know I had a situation like that too. Like say, make sure if you're cross listing, like Omar's saying, make sure you pay attention to the quantity of certain things that you have. Make sure that you didn't sell it on another platform, because I know I had a situation like that where mine is I sold a DVD. I think it was Anchorman or something like that. I wasn't
Oh,
assuming I was going to sell it because it was sitting on my store for at least 3 or 4 months, and I had sold it. I couldn't find it, and I made the shipping label and everything. I didn't want to refund them because that's the worst thing you want to do. Like how we stated, you don't want to get a ding or a bad review or whatever from eBay or whatever. These people are very very strict. So, I think it was like 2 days. For those 2 days, I was looking. I was like looking in my inventory. I couldn't find it. I even took everything out because how my stuff is, I have everything alphabetical order, so I couldn't find it. So what I ended up doing is
yeah.
I took the label with me. I went to this local pawn shop that I bought and stuff, and luckily they had the DVD there for $1. I bought it, shipped it that day, even though it was 2 days late. I just pretty much told them like, hey, there's an issue with my post office, but don't worry, I'm gonna automatically send it to you. So I was just fortunate that I was able to find it at my local pawn shop. Because if not, I'm the same situation as you. You don't want to refund these people. That's why you got to make sure that the item is described like it's supposed to. You're doing your listings right. You're checking your quantity of your inventory. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to get bit in the ass because of a little mistake that you made.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. It's just all about just really being careful. Like, I feel like most of those issues, can be solved with just taking initiative, man. Like, if I really paid attention when I sold that game the first time,
Yeah.
I can just go ahead and take it down, and my business model is a little different, because I do online, and then I have space in the stores where I leave inventory in the store. So it can get kind of hectic sometimes, but there's ways that you can kind of lower that so you don't have to deal with it as much, because if it's something that you're dealing with constantly, then, which there was at one point that I had to kind of sit back like, man, I need to revise like what I'm really doing here, just because, this is causing, unnecessary work, unnecessary stress. I need to go ahead and, take things down, make sure I'm going through all my listings, taking things down. I mean, there is cross listing software as well. um, I don't know if you've ever used, I don't know if they call it Flip It or FlyP. It's FLYP. It's a cross listing tool that, and I'm not sponsored by them in any way. So before I put that out there, I mean, unless they want to sponsor me, come holler at me. But
Right.
it's eBay, Poshmark, Facebook, Depop, Mercari, and Etsy.
Okay.
And I think for the first 100 days or something like that, they do, or they give it to you, let you use it for free for 100 days. And then I think it's like maybe like $10 or something like that after each month. Don't quote me on the exact number, but it's a low dollar amount. Cross listing software can help. The thing is, what I've noticed, and I dabbled with it for a little bit. Sometimes I'll sell something and then it won't automatically take it down. So I still have to go in there and take it down. So
manually.
yeah, manually. So realistically, it kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. I would say it helped. Now, what you can do when you go in there manually, you can take it down off multiple platforms at the same time, manually. So it does help in that regard.
Yeah, it does help, but then it's like if you're paying for it and there's a glitch in the system, then what is the purpose of you paying for it if it's not doing the actual job that it's intended to be doing? You know what I mean? Because then you might as well just keep doing it manually, anyways.
Exactly. And I catch myself, and I haven't been on there in a while, but I catch myself just doing it manually, because it's better that way. At least, for me, I'm not super large scale. I feel like it's really beneficial if you're like crazy large scale. But, for me, my scale isn't that big. So a lot of it, although it's tedious, I can still handle it on my own. And I try to, at least for the most part, every day. The only good thing is, usually a lot of the stuff I have doubles of. So, if I sell one somewhere, I could just, send another copy. But, it's one of those things that for collector's pieces, or especially in like you sell a little bit of everything and you come across one of a kind things. So, you'll only have one of those to send. So, it becomes tricky, man. And just like you said, being on top of your inventory is probably the best thing to do, especially as a new reseller. You don't want things to get out of hand like super early in your reselling journey, because that's just going to discourage you, man. And reselling is a beautiful thing. So it's it's best to just deal with it now so you don't got to deal with it later, bro.
No, you're exactly right. Um, like you said, learn all that stuff. Be advised on what you're listing and inventory, and making sure you're taking the pictures, the precise pictures of what you need, stating everything. You don't need to be too descriptive. You don't need to write a whole paragraph or an essay, but at least good enough where the people can, read it and see the pictures and then the titles and stuff like that. And then too, like you said, if you have to add for, new resellers, if you have to add what Omar's saying on the description or in the title saying ask questions, go ahead and ask questions for any buyer.
Absolutely.
Because, if you want to get the information that you need, it's good to ask
Absolutely.
questions. And
Yeah,
then, as a
just
reseller,
reach
we're there
out,
to answer these questions that you
I'm
have.
more than
That's our job,
happy
but we can't
to
answer it or we
go
don't
ahead
can't
and
take a picture for certain
send additional
items or
pictures or
whatnot, then,
additional
we'll be
information.
glad to explain it to you. What's
I'd
the
rather do
reason
that
for
to,
that? But
gain your
other
trust,
than
gain your
that, guys, like we
confidence
appreciate
so
you guys
that you
listening to
can go
us.
ahead and hit that buy now
I know we
button.
did go off topic here and there, but
You
we
know,
just wanted to state to you
and that's a
guys,
good point as well,
listings,
just
inventories,
always be responsive to
cross
your buyer.
listing
Uh,
apps if you have
and it's
to
not
do it
always easy.
manually.
We're doing stuff, we're busy,
Also,
we're,
like how
whatever the
Omar
case may be,
said,
but
take
you
initiative. If
know, that extra
you don't want to
five
refund
minutes
people and he
10
just to
minutes,
get that
30
sale, get a
minutes
happy
that you take to
customer.
respond could be the difference between them going from you and then going to go buy with another a seller. So, that's definitely something to consider at all times. Just do what's best for the customer. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. Does your listing look as descriptive as just pay close attention to the listing part in your inventory for sure, so you don't have to refund anyone. Like always, thanks for listening to another episode of Thrift Chronicles. Till next time.